The opinions of our guests are not necessarily that of Top Shelf.
Hey, we've all been hearing all the buzz about what's going on with recreational cannabis in the state of Missouri over the last couple months. And we've been trying to bring you that latest updates as much as we can on Top Shelf. Lately, what's going on in Jeff City? There's a big push in Jeff City right now. Some lawmakers are getting involved. And this past Tuesday, a Republican Missouri lawmaker unveiled a bill to tax and regulate adult use cannabis in the state. It would provide opportunities for expungements, authorize social consumption, such as like consumption lounges, and permit cannabis businesses to claim tax deductions with the state, and a lot of other things that are very interesting to me. Republican Ron Hicks filed the legislation titled Cannabis Freedom Act. He said that the measure was drafted in a way that thoughtfully incorporates elements from every marijuana bill filed this session to create a free but tightly regulated market for legal cannabis. What will this legislation accomplish as drafted? Well, here to talk to us about it today, we have Eapen Thampy in the Top Shelf studio. So tell us a little bit about yourself for our followers who may not be familiar with who you are.
Well, Eapen Thampy. I grew up in St. Louis, went to Parkway North High School, went to Mizzou, studied economics and math, got into the wine business, and then someone handed me a bag of weed.
It was all over then, wasn't it?
You know, and the wine business was a great introduction to cannabis because grapes are an agricultural commodity, right? And that was a very good way to understand this other agriculture. Right, you know, and I did everything in the wine business except sell for a distributor. But you know, I did field work in vineyards. I did a little work in a winery. Did work in a lab at Mizzou at the Institute for Continental Enology and Viticulture, and then in service side, you know, so worked in a couple of restaurants, ran a couple of wine lists, worked in a retail wine operation. And then about 2009, got together with a smaller group of people, including Mark Pedersen and Dan Vietz, and we started the modern legalization movement in Missouri. About a year later, we started Show Me Cannabis. Then that turned into, we actually did a ballot initiative campaign in 2012. Which was a miserable failure, but it was a valuable exercise in
learning.
Yep. So we understood, you know, like a lot of people are like, let's do a ballot initiative. They have no idea how difficult it is. And then, you know, I was very good at fundraising and bringing in support to the campaign. But ultimately, I realized that a lot of the folks involved in New Approach had their only real interest was in controlling the market, and so this whole idea of license caps really starts in you know, around 2013-14, and that
didn't set well with you.
You know, Missouri's an agricultural state. It's not
absolutely.
It's not like it's not like you have to get a license to grow soybean or corn. You know, the first time I went out to California with Ed Rosenthal, actually.
Wow.
You know, I got introduced to a bunch of growers in Santa Rosa, and I got taken out to this, you know, 2-acre plot of cannabis, and dude's hand watering his plants, and I'm like, bro, I got.
There's better ways.
You ever hear of drip irrigation? You know, but you know, you go to Mizzou, you know, at the in the ag school, you know, we train kids to run 50,000 acres.
Right.
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 You know, you think about the history of Missouri. You know, we were the nation's #1 hemp producer, as us in Kentucky. You know, Pierre Laclede, who founded St. Louis, was a hemp trader,
right. Yeah.
among other things. But
well, my fourth great grandfather John Hoddle was a hemp farmer in Virginia.
Wow.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it has been or it used to be a staple agricultural, you know, crop here in the United States.
Yeah, you know, so in 2014, went up to the Capitol in Jefferson City, and I've always been like super connected with people and different interest groups. right? But I knew State Representative Paul Kurtman. He's a former Marine from Pacific, and I think he now lives in Washington, Missouri. But I was like, hey, Paul, you gotta do something about this agricultural hemp deal. So he filed the bill for us. So that was the first time the lawmaker said, hey, this is a great idea. Let's do this. And it took us 4 years to pass that bill, and a 5th year to actually get the program funded to open it. But I had a client out in Lexington, Missouri, and we had the first legal hemp harvest in since Prohibition. Yep.
Nice.
That was a moment.
Dude, that's epic, is
Yep.
what that is. That's like you've really been around, man. You're like a in Missouri. You're an OG of the legalization movement, man.
You could say that.
Yeah, dude, you're ground floor guy. You're responsible
Yep.
for the hemp legalization, man.
Yep.
So yeah, that rocks, dude. So as far as cannabis legalization, tell us about your affiliation with Ron Hicks and what's going on with that.
I think it was 2014, right? So we had a medical marijuana bill filed in the House. It was Representative Dave Hinson from St. Clair, Franklin County, right? And I think it's 2004, but we had a hearing in the Emerging Issues Committee in the House of Representatives, and it was a great hearing. We had all kinds of testimony. There was special needs mothers, veterans, cancer patients, even my friend Gary Wiegert, who's a ex-cop from St. Louis, came and testified for the bill. And we're walking out of the hearing room after the hearing, and one of the lawmakers says, "Hey, Ron, you got some water in your sleeve." And Ron Hicks, this tall guy, real skinny. He says, hey, "Oh, that's bong water." I was like, I got to know this guy.
Right, yeah.
So that's how I know Ron Hicks was. He was on the Emerging Issue.
And that's what you're just kind of like, what did he just say? You know what? That's one of those. To me, that's one of those universal moments where the connection's made.
Yep.
And that's one of those doors that you could have been like, oh, well, that was a funny comment, and walked on. But you caught that, man, and you were like, wait a minute, and to me, that's one of those universal moments that something actually takes place that's meant to happen.
Yep.
A connection's made. I call it strategic positioning. Okay, and when we set forth to do something with passion, then the universe conspires with us to bring it to fruition, and that's just one of those connections that's made. Through that positioning that we all go through. So, and now here I go on one of my tangents.
Yeah.
That's awesome,
so Ron, he left office, I think, in 2016, and took a couple years off. But I kept in touch with him. Then he ran for office back again in 2018, and this is his last year. You're limited to 8 years in the House, 8 years in the Senate. So that's 4 terms in the House, 2 in the Senate. But this is Ron's last year. He's from he lives in Darden Prairie. He's a state representative for that district.
All right.
He used to be a cop, and then he was a logistics guy for the Navy. As a contractor for the Navy.
That's a resume.
Yeah, yeah, he's got some stories. But we always kept in touch. I definitely appreciated what he was trying to do. And then this past December, we saw Governor Parson. He said to St. Louis Public Radio, my old friend from college, Jason Rosenbaum, was interviewing him. Okay. And Governor Parson said, I'm paraphrasing, but Parson said, I prefer that the legislature takes up the legalization issue. And so I called Ron up, and Ron's like, that's our go signal, right? Mm-hmm. So, we began taking input from, we reached out to a lot of people, said, hey, what do you want to see? What we ended up doing was we took every marijuana bill that had been filed over the last 2 years, put it into one packet. And then we reached out to the folks in Oklahoma because they're the most free market medical marijuana program in the country. And actually last year they had a bill that was trying to restrict the number of licenses. And this was interesting because, you know, they don't have a limit on licenses.
Right.
They have like 9,000, 10,000 marijuana
Yeah,
businesses
it's
in
crazy. It's
Oklahoma.
Wild West down there.
Yep.
Kind of like Michigan when it went legal.
Yep. So the Oklahomans told us, like, look, you know, we tried to do the license cap thing. It didn't work. We got so much blowback from the public. It was like, okay, this is not a good idea. But what happened was, so what's happening in Oklahoma is actually there is an issue. So the ballot initiative that passed the medical marijuana proposal has almost no regulation associated with it.
Wow. Okay.
So what's happening now is you have foreign, crime syndicates, Chinese, Russians, cartel, whatever.
Right.
They're coming to Oklahoma. They're buying 100, 200 licenses and then just playing whack-a-mole with large production facilities and sending it out all to, Miami or New York. So there was an issue in Oklahoma, but what we did was we went to Oklahoma State Representative Scott Fettgatter. He's the Republican in the House who's really taken on this issue. And we said, hey, clearly the people of Oklahoma don't support restricting opportunity, but you do have some issues. How do we deal with them? So the regulatory framework that we have in Ron Hicks's bill is largely derived from what the Oklahomans told us.
Okay.
So you still have to apply.
So trying to avoid the problems that they've seen in Oklahoma while trying to give as free a market as possible.
Correct.
At the same time.
Correct.
Gotcha.
So all the regulation, all the compliance in that in the Cannabis Freedom Act is intended. Okay, so you have to show us your bank account. You have to show us where your money's from. You do a background check. All of these things. You have to show us your water source, your power source, your projections. You have to do it. We have to have seed to sale tracking. But once you check all those boxes, the sky's your limit.
So the metric's still going to be in place. Basically, is that what I'm hearing?
Metric or BioTrack, or if there's another company
Right,
out there that has a viable seed to sale tracking.
Okay. See, I don't know
system.
of any. All I know is metric because that's what I hear. So.
Yeah, there's also BioTrack. I think they're out of Florida.
Oh, right on. Okay, well, that's a lot, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been around, dude. You're. That's really cool that you've dedicated your life basically to getting cannabis legalized in the state of Missouri.
My mom would tell you I'm very stubborn.
That's okay. That's what it takes. They tell you that when you're a kid, like it's a bad thing or something. It's kind of like ADD. Hey, you know what? I can do 20 things at one time and stay focused on them all. So I don't think that's such a bad thing, really.
Or like Kanye says, it's more painful for me to quit than to lose.
Right.
Right. I'd rather.
That makes a lot of sense. So let's talk. Okay, so this last Tuesday,
Yep.
Representative Hicks filed an initiative or a bill.
A bill, House
Okay,
Bill
a bi-
2704.
Okay, House Bill 2704. Remember that. House Bill 2704. Look it up.
Go to house.mo.gov, and there's a little box there that says, where you can search legislation, and you type in 2704, it'll come right up.
2704. Read about it. Educate yourself on it past what we're going to talk about here, because that's the only way you can make an informed decision and do what needs to be done.
So we're going to talk about what's in the bill.
Yes.
But I also want to highlight a key difference between us and
Yes.
Legal Missouri and Fair
Please.
Access, is that advancing legislation through the Missouri General Assembly is as much about process as it is about product, right?
Okay.
So we've come up with a lot of great ideas.
Mm-hmm.
We're not saying it's perfect, but this process is designed to bring in all stakeholders, including adversarial ones. I want to talk and debate and have it out with everyone who agrees with me or doesn't agree with me.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Get it out on the table.
Yeah. So this process, so the problem in my mind, the problem with these ballot initiative groups is that they come up with this wish list of what they want or what their people are paying them to put in that initiative.
Right.
And then you have the choice of yes or no.
Right. Exactly.
Right? You don't have the choice of do I get input and say this line is worded incorrectly or this idea is
Right.
not great,
Okay.
And one of the ideas I don't like about the Fair Access or the Legal Missouri campaign is that they both have this these possession limits, which
Sure.
we don't have possession limits in the state of Missouri
Well,
for
actually,
alcohol.
that goes right into what I want to talk about here next is I want to talk about possession, home cultivation, how this is going to affect the present medical, specifically home cultivation.
We don't
and
touch the
all that.
medical marijuana program.
Nothing on medical, so it doesn't affect the medical marijuana program at all.
The medical
I like that.
marijuana-
It shouldn't. It shouldn't.
The medical marijuana program is in the Constitution.
Uh-huh.
We've got a proposal that creates a fully legal adult use framework, and then all the other bills, from expungement to offender release,
So let's
banking.
tell us about it.
Expungement, offender release. We don't, banking. We have a section in there that says marijuana odor is not probable cause for a warrantless search. There's a lot of stuff in there. Tighten up language on background checks.
So yeah, and that's some of the stuff I was reading. Like, okay, so and I'm going to get a few specifics. So it's in there for like, if this bill passes, me as a cannabis consumer and a cultivator, I would personally be able to have 12 plants.
Correct.
Okay, now, do I have to register those plants?
No.
Do I have to register my grow?
No.
Nobody even knows I'm growing.
How
does that work?
In the state of Missouri, you're allowed to, I think, distill 50 gallons of liquor.
Right.
And you don't have to register that
Don't
with the
have
state.
to. Right.
Now, if there's a fire on your property and cops come in and you have, and you're distilling, thousands of liters,
Right.
there's an issue.
Right. If you're obviously a commercial, distillery and you're selling moonshine on the black market.
We got a lot of
yeah.
moonshiners in the Ozarks.
You know what? Hey, I'm not even gonna say it. My family, has been known to run a load of liquor here and there once in a while back in the day, from what I hear.
Yeah.
So 12 plants for a cultivator. Okay. No possession limits, which
Correct.
That's the only correct way. No possession limits is the only correct way.
We talked to a lot of cops, including your sheriff here in Clay County,
Uh-huh.
Will Aiken. We talked to a lot of cops, right? And let me tell you, the sentiment I've been getting from law enforcement is, we don't care about marijuana.
Yeah.
We don't want to deal with it. The people want it. It's still the law that we have to enforce. But a lot of cops tell us, we don't want to be in the marijuana enforcement business. So waste of our time. How many cops do you know sign up to be a cop so they can bust a weed guy?
Right. No. That's not what
maybe
they're going
a very
after.
small fraction.
Right.
But the
And
average,
most of them all smoked weed when they were younger, still do probably.
if you're a cop,
if
you're a cop, you probably have this idealistic notion of, I'm here to protect and serve my community
Yes.
against violent criminals and property crimes, right? You're not there to bust some guy who's not hurting anyone, who's just
smoking a little weed on his back porch. Right?
Yep. The Legal Missouri campaign has a horrible thing in it, right? They want to create a constitutional law enforcement mandate to stop and cite people for smoking weed in unsanctioned public spaces. Now, to me, this is horrific, right? First off, if that were to be a law, that should be in statute. It should be in the Constitution, number one, right? But number two, you take this around to any of the black communities,
right.
you want another Michael Brown? This is how you get another Michael Brown.
Yeah.
Right? The
Right.
fact that Jack Herdetti and John Payne came up with this proposal, and Jack Herdetti is a smart guy. He has been in politics a long time. He helped Claire McCaskill get elected. He's been running ballot initiatives for years. But the fact that Jack Herdetti and John Payne and Dan Vietz, who should know better, Dan Vietz has been an attorney for 40 years? 50 years almost. And the fact that they put into their constitutional marijuana ballot initiative, stop and cite for smoking weed, is horrific. There's no other way to say that it is willfully and intentionally racist, and I'm choosing my words very carefully.
You're good, man. Yeah.
And then they have these possession limits. The Legal Missouri and the Fair Access have possession limits.
I don't understand it. Makes no sense to me.
So one thing that the Cannabis Freedom Act has in it, we completely removed marijuana from Missouri's Controlled Substances Act. I think that's actually a first in the nation thing, No other state has actually done that.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. So, and that's one of my been one of my songs this whole time is, if it still has possession limits, I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with possession limits. I'm not okay with I'm not okay with possession limits, and I'm not okay with people still being in a position to be incarcerated for, I don't care if it's 1 gram or 1 kilo. I don't care.
This is how stupid possession limits are, right? So right now we have legal hemp. Hemp is legal federally.
Right.
The difference between hemp and marijuana is what? It's one molecule. It's
Right.
delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol.
Yes.
Right? But you have these isomers of delta-9 THC, right? You've got delta-8, you've got delta-10, you've got all these, other
Perfectly
intoxicants, right?
okay.
Tetrahydrocannabinols, and those are all legal because they're derived from
Buy
hemp.
them at the gas station, man.
Correct? There's no possession limit on that, right? You can have 20 pounds, you can have 100 pounds in your truck.
Same as alcohol.
As long as it, but like this one molecule, we put this fence around, it doesn't make any sense.
Right. I agree 100%. And so that's one of the things that really turns me on about what I heard about what Ron Hicks is doing, is that, the possession limits, to me, if it's regulated at all in that manner, then I'm not for it. So now, who's going to be responsible for regulating the program if once this program takes place?
So we have an agricultural hemp program.
Right.
That's controlled by the Missouri Department of Agriculture. We have like somewhere between 300 and 400 licensed hemp producers and processors in the state of Missouri. That program has been non-controversial. There's no license cap. It costs like $750, $800 to go through the permitting process and get a hemp license. So we said, like, look, Ag Department has experience in cannabis. Why don't we just
Let them handle it.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's also the issue, and I want to be careful here, but I think the people of Missouri have lost faith in the health department, right?
Now you think. It took a minute from that to register with me. I'm like, no, you don't say. They've done such a great job rolling out the medical program.
Well, I mean, so much of this is the problem of when you put something in the Constitution, when you put regulations in the Constitution, you really handcuff the regulators and the government in a lot of ways. And, you might have heard, so like 2 weeks ago, there was a debate on the House floor about initiative petitions.
Okay.
Right? They want to raise the cap for qualifying a constitutional change to the ballot. I actually agree with that. I think it should be more difficult to change our Constitution than it is right now. Okay. Right? And so in the midst of this debate, State Representative Jared Taylor, he's the chairman of the he's from Nixa.
Okay.
Nixa, Missouri, Christian County.
Yeah. I used to build hot rods in Nixa, Missouri.
Nice. So anyway, Representative Taylor stands up on the floor. He's the chairman of the Special Committee on Governmental Oversight. He stands up and says, we had this medical marijuana ballot initiative. Everyone voted for it because everyone wants medical marijuana, right? And what we found was there was actual fraud and corruption in the licensing process, right?
Wow.
And that was very pointed words, right? And he all but named the lobbyists for Mocan Trade and Legal Missouri, and pointed the finger at them. And then he was followed by State Representative Ben Baker. Ben Baker is a very conservative Christian pastor from Neosho, Missouri. And Ben Baker, I'm going to quote him here, he says, if you give me the choice between pot on every corner or governmental corruption, I'll take pot on every corner, because the effects of governmental corruption are much more long-lasting and negative, right? And
Absolutely.
This was in direct response to, so the Mocan trade lobbyists are going around the Capitol saying, oh, look at Oklahoma, it's a Wild West. It's nuts out there, right? But Ben Baker from Neosho, which is not too far from the Oklahoma border, he stands up and he says, give us pot on every corner. It's better than the corruption or the appearance of corruption that has been created in the medical marijuana licensing process.
Wow, that's crazy. And we're going to be we're talking about the bill that was presented this past Tuesday, April. Oh, wow, April. Okay, I don't even know what month I'm in. February what? What was the date? You better take that one.
I think we filed it on February 14th.
February 14th, Valentine's Day. That's right. It was last Tuesday, wasn't it? So it was. We were here doing Top Shelf, and they were filing bills and getting things done. So one of the things I want to talk about, Eapen, is the legislation says that adults could contract with licensed growers to cultivate 12 plants on their behalf also, kind of like the caregiver program now.
Correct.
Now, is there a limit on how many, like, what if I got 10 friends that want me to grow plants for them? Can I grow 12 plants for each 10 friends?
We like it.
You like it. I like it too.
Yep.
I love it, man. And one thing that I saw that really turned me on was that me, as not as a medical grower, but as a personal cultivator at my home garden, I could actually go to a processing facility and work with them to have them process my cannabis into concentrates, drinks, edibles, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. Now, with that, will I be able to market that to a dispensary that's legal, or is that for my personal use?
It wouldn't be in the seed to sale tracking system if you did that. So no, you wouldn't be able to. But
I'd be able to give that to friends because this is, you can actually give and gift cannabis. There's no legislation against that. Correct?
Yeah, so Christina Thompson from Show Me Canna Freedom actually approached us about explicitly including language about sharing. And it was like, okay, this makes sense.
Right. Okay, so it's in there.
I mean,
we can, like, right now, the medical cannabis program, we all sit here on our show and we dab and we do our thing, and we have our smoke session. We all have our individual legally purchased or legally grown cannabis that we use, and we're very careful to stay compliant.
Yeah, I mean, if you had
as far as you know,
if you had if you were brewing your own beer, you could pop one and give me one, and that's completely legal.
Right.
I don't see any difference with cannabis.
I agree, and so with this, we would be able to share cannabis on set or in public or wherever it's permitted to, let's say, drink alcohol. You could smoke cannabis.
Basically.
But not inside, because there's...
We actually create a first-in-the-nation hospitality permitting program.
Yes, that's...
So we allow lodging establishments, bars, restaurants, and caterers to get a hospitality permit to serve a marijuana or a marijuana product or to have a consumption space, right? So we do have a restriction there that you want to have it segregated if it's a smoking area, right? So that makes sense.
Because of the smoke.
Yes.
Well, and that's one of the things like this, the event that we're doing now, a lot of people are asking, well, are we going to be able to consume cannabis inside? Well, I don't think with the current liquor laws that the event venue is going to permit you to consume cannabis inside where there's alcohol being served, because there is going to be a cash bar at our event. But outside, on the patio, on the sidewalk, whatever, with this, cannabis could be consumed in those locations.
Yep.
And that's exciting. That's how it needs to be. Look, what I don't want is I don't want to be left like a dog begging for scraps at the master's table.
You go down to Crossroads, the music venue.
I saw Sublime there not too long ago.
Right, yeah. People smoke weed there anyway.
Oh, yeah, of course they did.
All we're saying is that the venue operator and the artist should have a legal way to capture some of that revenue, right? Yeah. I should be able to go there, and Sublime should have a merch table where I can buy a cross-branded blunt.
I agree. Cannagars, all the fun shit we don't get here yet, right? Yeah. So I agree totally, man. I'm down with it, and that's honestly what I'm hearing coming from him is that a lot of the stuff that I've been saying that I had a problem with these initiatives that are on for a petition is like done away with this bill. And we have to focus in on as much freedom as we can possibly get at this time. None of us live in an illusionary state, or I should say a delusionary state, where we think that we are just going to be allowed to grow weed and smoke weed and sell weed and give weed away, and it's just like tomatoes. It's not going to happen. But we also don't want to, just like cave to a lesser form of bondage than what we already have that isn't really that far off. I've seen people here with Canada Convict projects over the past couple of years. I've been able to make the acquaintance of several really, really good people that have done years of their life in the penitentiary for cannabis. And it's ridiculous, and it should not happen for any amount of cannabis. Nobody should be in prison for a nonviolent cannabis law. And, they have used it to oppress people for long enough. And that's what the laws are all about. No matter what avenue you look down for why they have criminalized cannabis to the level they have, it's all to oppress people. Certain racial groups, certain political groups, certain economical groups. It's all done to oppress a certain people. And, we don't need that. We want away from that. And if there's anything written in at all that's going to continue to allow the oppression of anyone with the fear of incarceration, I'm sorry, but you're not. I'm not down with it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. And under Anslinger, it was blacks and Mexicans, and then under Nixon, they added Jews and hippies, right?
Yeah.
And it was a racial and social control.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely, 100%. And then they there's a lot of buzz around just the word marijuana.
Yeah.
Okay. Now initially the word marijuana was not a negative word, but they put that negative connotation on it to demonize.
Yep.
Latinos.
Yep.
And it is what it is, man. That's what they did. If you say no, it didn't, then you're lying to yourself. So. And it's bullshit. I'm sorry, but we have to do away with this. We can't just sit by and allow this to continue. We are on a roll here, people, and we don't want to settle for something that doesn't give us the best option that we can possibly have. So this is perfect. Let's segue into social equities and stuff. And it says this measure contains you were saying earlier expungement provisions and stuff. So
full expungement. The Legal Missouri campaign actually treats offenders who are serving time or serving a sentence for more than 3 pounds different from other offenders. Mm-hmm. Right? We don't have any. We don't have any restrictions. If you're doing time or you have a record for a nonviolent marijuana offense.
Right, and the key is nonviolent. So, and that's important.
Yep.
So, but
and then
full expungement.
Yeah. And then we also have a tax deduction. If you lost your licensing fees in the medical marijuana program, you're authorized for a tax deduction. Okay. I look at that as kind of a reparative justice issue, because a lot of people who went through that licensing process were victimized by predatory consultants.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
You had so many. And I'm gonna actually name some names here, like Jay and Diane Sarkowski from Canada Advisors. They won 29 licenses, or Chip Shepard down in Springfield, or what's his name, the guy from McHugh from Vertical Enterprises. These guys, or John Payne. John Payne and Michael Hill. They did Amendment 2 consultants, but they would. People were desperate, for these services, right? And all these guys were like, "Oh, we helped write the initiative, and we campaigned for it, and we won it, and now we're the guys you need to talk to about getting a license," right? So,
don't you find that suspicious? Yeah.
The first people who get paid in these restricted licensing campaigns is the consultants who write the licenses.
Go figure, right?
Right. And so it kind of created this gold rush where, they would tell you, like John Payne in his contracts explicitly states, we may have a conflict of interest with other applicants applying in the same area as you. But don't worry about that. It's fine. Give us $50,000.
Yeah, we'll take your money. You just don't worry about the small writing, right?
It's also funny how the people who, typically these consultants would ask for, cash up front and then a slice of equity, which is an optional. It's funny how the applicants who gave up that slice of equity won their licenses, while the ones who didn't give up that equity lost their application.
Wow, yeah. And see, I mean, you're talking foreign language to me right now, because I really, there are other people out there that are way more dug into that than I am. And so, it's interesting hearing about it. And, but I wish I could carry on a better conversation with you about that. But you're educating me right now on these particular other initiatives. And
so let's also talk about some other equity ideas that we have, right? So it's not in the bill yet, but I'm working with the Black Caucus. So the Black Caucus is all the black lawmakers.
I read that, yeah.
Right, and the chair of that group is Ashley Bland Manlove. She's the state representative for I think District 26 in Kansas City. So like UMKC area, that's her district. And then Wiley Price from St. Louis. So I sat down with Wiley. I gave him several ideas. Right. The big thing about getting people into the business is that you don't have to have a capital requirement, right? But access to capital is probably the most difficult thing for any entrepreneur.
Yes, it is.
So what we did was we looked at loan and grant programs that already exist in our Missouri Department of Economic Development, right? And I'll point out one. There's a loan program that the state already has, where the city or the county can apply on behalf of a business, startup, or an expanding business for loan capital.
Okay.
Right, and so what I told Wiley is like, look, you're going to offer an amendment to this bill when it comes to the floor to expand that program to people who've been affected by prohibition. Right?
Okay.
So that's a way for you to access non-predatory loan capital.
Yeah, and that's a major problem that I see with the other initiatives that are out right now, is that even if, let's say, I put the $2,500 up, I get my name drawn out of the hat. Yay! Hey! Woohoo! I got it.
What John Payne is not telling you about his lottery and the Legal Missouri Ballot Initiative is that, look, if you have a lottery and let's say I'm Cresco or some like big multi-state marijuana company. Well, I'm going to come to Missouri. I'm going to find someone who can fit the restrictions for applying, right? And we're going to put in 50 applications.
Exactly, right. So you got 51. But let's just say I win a license, okay? And I can go open my own micro grow op, my own craft cannabis grow and vertical, whatever, because that's kind of, I think, what they said they had presented. That's great, okay? But now, again, we talked about this a little earlier. I've got to come up with probably a minimum of $250,000 to be able to open this facility and to pass all the tracking and the seed to sale and get hooked up with metric and all that. It's going to cost me a minimum of about $250 or $250,000. So now I have one of two choices. I can either refinance my house and get all I can get out of that, go take out a signature loan on my truck, go down here, scrape the money together with everything I can and put this toward that facility if I can get that money together. Have investors, or maybe I got money with, I got a little bit of a deep pocket and I can throw out $250 and not care. I'm personally not in that position. So what you're saying is, with this, I should be able to go to the bank and apply for a loan?
Well,
or am I?
That's tricky because of the federal prohibition.
Okay.
That's where the access to capital gets tricky. So But our state has loan programs.
And this is,
for small
through the state
businesses.
loan programs.
So,
Okay.
I think it's a no-brainer.
If we qualified for one of those,
Yeah.
then we could be able to gain the funding to have that. So, and that's going to be geared toward people who need it the most, people who don't have access to it, people who, for whatever reasons, demographic, race, whatever, have been like overwhelmingly affected by prohibition.
Yeah.
Things like that. So yeah, that's okay. So
Yeah. So so like I said, we're gonna work with Representative Wiley Price to have this debate and hopefully add these ideas into the bill as it moves through the process. We'll have a committee hearing in the House, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. We'll see. We'll have then the bill will go to the House floor, right? We have a pretty good idea that we'll have a vote to pass it, and then we go to the Senate. So the Senate's where we need a lot of help.
okay. That's where you need the people's support?
Well, I mean, we need the people's support through all this,
Right.
throughout the entire process, right? So, last week I was very happy. I was very proud. But for the first time in 8 years, we had, Christina Thompson and her group came up to the Capitol. It was the first time I think Jefferson City has seen actual citizen activists come to the Capitol on this issue.
Okay.
And let me tell you, email your state representative and your state senator. You can go to house.mo.gov and look up your state representative and senator and email them or call them. But it really makes an impact when people take the time out of their day, take the time out of their job, making a living, to drive up to the Capitol and make their voices heard, right? Because, let me tell you, a lot of other groups, like, the Alzheimer's Association or the, there was a group, the Credit Union Association, there's all kinds of associations, all kinds of different businesses or interest groups. They make the time to go up to the Capitol. And some of these groups, when they show up with 500 people.
Yeah.
Right? They've got buses.
We need to show out like
right?
that.
If there's one thing I could tell you is that since this bill is introduced, I think every single state representative and senator has gotten an email or call. In fact,
Nice.
probably more than a couple.
Well, let's do that more too. So I'm going to promote that.
They need to hear the voices of the people of Missouri. They need to hear input, right? They need to hear what's missing in this bill. They need to hear what should be taken out of this bill, right?
Right.
And working together, we can craft a product. Maybe some people are not going to be happy, but that's
you can't make everybody happy. You know?
Cannot.
So hopefully the ones who aren't happy are the ones who are trying to be shifty.
Yeah.
So we've already talked a little bit about some of this taxation, banking, and social use.
Yep.
So the tax rate for adult use couldn't exceed 12%.
We're already hearing from state representatives that that's going to be a topic of debate. Spoke to Representative Shane Roden. He's, I think, the chairman of the Public Safety Committee. He's a cop. He's very pro-cannabis, but he came up to us and he said, look, 12%, that's too high.
Gotcha.
He's like, should be no more than 4%, right? Because we don't want to have a tax rate that's so high that it keeps people out of the legal market.
Sure.
Right? And I actually agree with him on that.
I
right?
agree.
And it's notable that it's coming from a cop,
Right.
because, well, first off, he's pro-cannabis, but, he gets that high taxes can restrict the...
Fuel the black market, basically. Yes. Yeah, it'll keep feeding that and, to get away from that. And that, it's...
Now I explained to him that, look, in a competitive market, go look at Oklahoma, go look at Portland, go look at Seattle. I mean, you can go to Portland and get a $25 ounce.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the greatest product.
Right.
But, you can get a...
get it.
You can go to the dispensary, you can go get a $25 ounce, you get a $50 ounce. And so when you're paying that kind of prices, 5%, 10%, that's not...
It's not that big of an impact.
I'll take that.
Now, where will the tax dollars go?
So in the bill as written, we say teacher salaries, first responder pensions, and the Veterans Commission. I can already tell you that there's going to be debate over that. We have some input from folks who want a 0.5% or 1% to go to volunteer firefighters. Sounds great to me.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, so community support programs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What tax dollars should go for, right?
And then
Too bad they can't go to the schools and things like that.
Then Representative Jim Murphy came to us and he said, like, look, I'm fine with taxing it, but why do we have to, in the bill, delegate the destination for those funds? Why can't we just put it into general revenue and let the legislature allocate it as they see fit through the budget process? That's a very reasonable point of view.
I don't have a problem with that. I think when you have to specifically target a destination for the taxes, I think you create a whole world of problems. They did it with pari-mutuel betting and gambling when they opened up the casinos.
Yep.
They targeted it to schools look, this is just like, this is a cherry on the pie for them to get the stuff passed, because it gets people on board. We're going to give veterans the money. We're going to give little kids the money. We're going to give it to orphans. So to me, that's just kind of like, hey, let's just sweeten this up so people will back it,
Yeah, that was an issue I had with the New Approach Missouri campaign, is like 4% tax to the veterans. I have a couple problems with that, right? Number one, in the state of Missouri, we don't tax medicine. Like, it's not like you can go get some albuterol or some, Adderall or whatever other medicine is prescribed to you, and there's not like there's a tax on it.
Right.
Right. So I disagree with taxing medicine, first off. Second
so in your opinion, the whole medical program should be non-taxable.
I got a couple of veteran friends. My buddy John Grady, who lives in Gasconade County, I think. He's a Marine and a Navy veteran, actually. But he told me, he's like, look, I'm a veteran, and I have to get taxed on my medicine, so that the money can go to veterans.
Yeah. Doesn't quite make sense, does it?
Why not just let people keep their money and if there has to be a tax, sure, we can have that discussion, but here in the state of Missouri, I think we have an idea of like minimal government on this kind of idea.
Right. So and that's how we need it to be. We need minimal government. The less government involved in anything is the best government.
Yes.
And I know I said less, but anyway, that's how we do it. So there are some restrictions and some room for improvement. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to quote here Hicks. I specifically incorporated tight regulatory compliance and enforcement requirements developed by Oklahoma, and we talked about this earlier, developed by Oklahoma Republican Scott Fetgatter.
Yep.
He said that adding the goal here was to prevent criminal syndicates from gaming any licensing protocol to divert marijuana to illegal markets in other states. And that's what you were talking about earlier with Oklahoma, and where the larger crime syndicates have come in and bought up all these licenses, and now they're taking all the product and shipping it to other states. And basically we've and there's another marijuana legalization movement out there that is just legalize it. It should be free like tomatoes. And my biggest concern with that was that you're going to open up the market for cartels, for big criminal organizations to come in and buy up hundreds of acres and plant fields of cannabis, and it's not going to do anything to help, fight international drug trafficking. Well, it wouldn't be international anymore, because it'd all be being grown right here legally in the state of Missouri and then taken out state.
So, last June or July, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas said the federal government has its foot half in and half out the door on this issue, right? And that's putting states in a bad position where there's a lot of traps, right? So on one side, you have the trap of restricting licenses. Every single market where there's restricted licenses, there's allegations and investigations, and in a lot of cases, convictions for political bribery and corruption. Mm-hmm. Right? In 2018 or 19, the Federal Bureau of Investigation actually put out a national bulletin saying, watch out for bribery and corruption in restricted license markets. We can't have that. We can't have that.
Right, yeah.
The other difficulty is what we just talked about, right? If you have a free market, well, then you have the risk that people are going to divert marijuana to illegal interstate markets. Now,
Right.
the federal government is the only entity that can solve that problem, right?
Sure.
By legalizing marijuana federally and allowing for interstate commerce, that'll solve a lot of problems,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
So hopefully we've got a regulatory system and a protocol that will allow Missouri to protect opportunity, protect the consumer, remediate some of the harms of prohibition, right? At the same time, Congress has got to act.
Yeah.
Congress has got to act. And I'm proud to be working with an old friend of mine, Taylor Burks, who's running for Congress in mid-Missouri. And we're seeing candidates like him all across the country saying, if I'm elected, this whole federal prohibition is going to end.
Wow.
Right? We need that.
Yeah, we
need
do.
that.
We definitely need that.
And part of what we were doing in Representative Hicks' bill is hopefully setting up Missouri to compete in that broader national market, right? Let me tell you something. You go down to the Boot Hill, to Pemiscot or Dunklin County, it's like the best place in the world to grow cannabis.
Oh, I
right?
imagine, yeah.
You dig down 6
Soil's
foot.
rich. I mean, yeah.
You know, sandy soils, rich soils. You dig down 6 foot, you hit water, and that's where you get 350 bushel an acre of corn, right?
Right.
That's so that acreage and in the Boot Hill is just ideal. The alluvial floodplain of the Missouri is ideal area for cannabis agriculture.
I think that's why it's so good over in Independence, and I say that, and it's funny, but that whole area over there used to be hemp farms,
Yep.
and the water table is, like you say, it's very, very high there. All of that area out there in eastern, east of 210, actually really east of 435 there, all out for several miles. It's just a huge water table under there, so a lot of people don't understand that.
So
Sugar Creek sits on a lake.
I can't tell you the future, but when federal prohibition of marijuana is lifted, it would make sense that Missouri is a exporter, right?
Yeah,
because
absolutely,
we have the soil, we have the climate, we have the water, and we have the infrastructure.
yes,
We can get a product. I mean, you drive down south, 20 minutes to Kansas City. You have 7 highways. You have the river. You have 2 airports. I mean, you want to get something to a global market, you can do it out of Kansas City.
and we're right in the middle of the country. So,
Yep.
All right. So you know what? One last thing I really, and we've kind of touched on it throughout here, but just in a nutshell. Okay, we've got Sham Dogan.
Shamed Dogan.
Shamed.
Yep.
Sham. You tell I'm from the military, right? Everybody's shamming. Shamed Dogan.
So Shamed
Legal Mode
Dogan.
2022 and fair access.
So we actually took a lot of the language from Ron Hicks' bill from Shemed's proposal.
Okay.
And, he's a state representative from St. Louis right now. He's running for St. Louis County executive, so his head's in that game. And I've been friends with Shemed for a long time. He's a great champion for freedom. He came into the legislature in 2015 in his first term, and the first thing he did was filed a bill to release Jeff Mizanski from prison.
Okay.
Right, and that passed out of the House. And when Governor Nixon saw he was about to pass the Senate and come to his desk and he'd be put on the spot, he signed the commutation.
Wow.
Awesome. and Jay Nixon was not a very clemency.
He wasn't ready to do that.
He was not a very merciful governor. Now
But he got it done.
I do want to shout out, though, our current governor, Mike Parson. He's a former Polk County sheriff.
Mm-hmm.
Then he went to the state house. Then he went to the state senate, and now he's in office as governor, right? And he has signed in the last year, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 full pardons and probably 24 commutations, including Robert Franklin. Robert Franklin got out, and then last week he signed a commutation for a woman who was serving like a decade or two for marijuana.
Really?
But Governor Parson is really setting an example from the state of Missouri for every other governor of how to use your clemency pen in a merciful, compassionate, and justice-oriented way.
Sure.
Right? Because, one of the things I think people forget about is that governors have power. The president has power to use the clemency pen, right?
Right.
To show justice and show mercy,
Yes.
right? And mercy is a part of justice.
Absolutely.
Right? You show mercy when someone is sentenced to a sentence that's too harsh or or is unjust, or
Absolutely.
Or has rehabilitated themselves, or showing mercy is not an act of a weak person.
No,
it's
no.
an act of a strong
It
person.
very much
right?
is.
It takes a lot.
Yes.
Right? It takes an understanding of people as individuals, as it takes an understanding of what your citizens and what your voters want. And I can't be happier to see Governor Parson using his clemency pen in this way.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm glad to hear that.
And we've got this expungement thing in this in Representative Hicks' bill, but honestly, we're going to go tell the governor, like, look, this expungement deal is going to be expensive, right? Because you're going to have to go to the court. You're going to say, hey, I've got this conviction. Can you expunge it? There's going to be a judge who's going to have to take up his time to do it. Whereas the governor can just put up a form on his website, say, here, put in your information, what's your conviction, right? And then he can have his team of attorneys vet all the applications and say, okay, these 10,000 applications are deserving of a pardon, right? So the governor can do a mass
Literally go through
systematic clemency pardon where we're not taking up the resources of circuit courts across the state of Missouri.
Sure.
Right? So we're going to ask the governor to consider that, and we think he might actually do it.
Beautiful.
Yep.
I love that. I love that. Out of our viewers out there and all of our followers that are going to watch this down the road, what do we need to do if they hear like what they hear right now and they want to support this bill? What is it that they really, in a nutshell, need to do to make an impact on this particular bill getting passed?
So go to house.mo.gov.
Write your representatives.
Look up your state representative, look up your state senator, make sure to call and email them and let them know that you want House Bill 2704 to get passed and put on the governor's desk. And if you can, come up to the Capitol. Monday through Thursday, usually, the schedule is posted on the House website. Tuesdays and Wednesdays are the best days to be in the Capitol because everyone's there and it's a full day and whatnot. And people can reach out to me. They can reach out. I work with the Crossing Paths Political Action Committee.
Okay.
So that's crossingpathspac.com, PAC. And then, we definitely need support. If anyone wants to support this in bigger ways, it has an interest in a commercial marijuana business that would be legal under this proposal, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm sure you can post my email
Yeah, we'll
address.
post all that. We'll get your contact information out there for people to get a hold of you. And man, I feel like I want to organize a road trip. Get as many people as I can. Is there a specific time or a specific day that would be best for, like, is there something happening specifically that would amplify 500 people showing up at the courthouse?
At the Capitol.
At the Capitol,
Right.
that's
So,
what I meant.
Yes, we do want to do a rally in the Capitol here in a couple of weeks. We'll have more information for you out.
Blow this shit up, man.
Yeah, and I couldn't be more excited. You go up to Jefferson City, you go to the Capitol, it truly is the people's house. Every single citizen in the state has a right to be there, right? They cannot be excluded, right? And a lot of people are intimidated by the prospect, but let me tell you, every single elected official will show you respect as a Missourian when you walk into that building, right? And it's your government. You have the voice, you have the power,
Awesome.
right? One of the things I've been very unhappy with these initiative petition groups is that for a long time they've been convincing people, lying to people, and saying, "Hey, don't worry about your elected officials; they're not going to listen to you." I have proven that wrong.
Yeah.
Right. I personally have proven that wrong, and many of those representatives and senators and even our governor have said, we want people to be part of this process. We want our constituents to be part of this process. So you have a voice, you have an impact. If we get 500,000 people in that building,
That'd be something, wouldn't it?
You better believe that law is going to get to the governor's desk real quick. Right? And I'm a lobbyist. I'm proud of my profession. I'm blessed to be able to make an income, as an advocate, right? But there are lobbyists, there are consultants, there are groups that are corrupting or trying to corrupt the state government, right? And we need the people's voice out there saying we cannot let unelected consultants, we cannot let corrupt lobbyists dictate how our state is run.
And right now, with the way the current affairs of humanity, we need it more than ever. Not just for cannabis, we need it for everything. The people, the only way that we are going to make the advancements we need to make as a society is if the people get their heads out of the sand, man, and get involved and go tell their state representatives, show up at the Capitol and say, hey, this is what we want. Your voice can't be heard if you're not screaming.
Right.
And we need to scream as people. Man, thank you so much for coming here and putting this out here for us and our followers. And we're going to get this out to as many people as we can. If you want to organize a march on the Capitol, let's do it, man.
Yep.
I'm down. We'll do everything we can to be a part of that. So
I'll go make the reservation. Under the Capitol, they have this under the Capitol Rotunda. They have this beautiful space, and oftentimes they'll have grassroots organizations or interest groups come in, and they'll reserve the space and have a rally inside the Capitol. And I would love for nothing more than to see hundreds of marijuana legalization supporters.
Yes.
Calling for an end to prohibition, calling for the release of people in prison. Calling for a state to do the right thing.
Absolutely. Well, and you know what? It's really in your hands. It's in our hands as the citizens of the great state of Missouri to make a showing, to step out and do it. So, you know what? It's been a great interview. I've been educated. I hope you have too. And if you want any more information about what Mr. Thampy here is doing. Is it Thampy or Thampy? Okay, I thought I had it right.
Yep.
If you have any more questions on what he's doing or how to get involved with what he's doing, hit us up if you need to. We're going to put that information out there. Like you said, the best thing to do is email and call your representatives and let them know that you want this bill to pass. And if that's what you want. Again, I'm going to remain in my neutral place, and I'll show you my faith by my actions. You'll see what I'm all about. That's all I can say. So, you know what, everybody? We're going to get back to the show. Thanks for taking the time out and paying attention to what we are trying to get across here.